think? Got some ideas?
Tell me, talk to me about it.
I will. Because he's going to look at it and go, I don't know what it is.
Who, Tyler?
So,
Three. Come on this one.
I guess.
Three will do.
I know he's
I
got
saw Joe, he's here somewhere.
You got
Joe
it.
is here.
Does have it.
So are you gonna, you or the mayor going to like set
So what's the deal? Is
expectations?
this
We've
gonna
all
be-
heard that it's going to be different, but I couldn't
Okay,
decide
it is 1 o'clock,
what it looks like.
and we have a quorum.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and start this meeting. It is the City Council Budget Workshop, and welcome to all those in attendance. We'll start with roll call attendance, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Here.
Councilmember Burnt?
Here.
Councilmember Palmer?
Here.
Councilmember Little Roberts?
Here,
Mayor DeVere?
Here. I don't know, does anyone have agenda in front of them? You want to move to approve the agenda?
Madam Mayor, I move we approve the agenda as published.
Okay.
second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as published. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes. And so the next item, I imagine, is to do the budget workshop.
That is correct. Madam Mayor, members of council, again, appreciate the opportunity to present to you Budget Workshop 2020. Number one for you. Again, I appreciate you guys finding time out of your busy days to join us. Think about the Dean. So again, appreciate everybody finding time out of their busy schedules to join us. Today we are going to present to you the fiscal year 2020 budget. I see the books are on your desks. This year we will change the format of delivery just a little different. The data in the books represents how you've seen it in years past, so nothing's changed there. What's going to change is the way we deliver the presentation to you. As you can see behind us, we have all the subject matter experts in the room, so at any time, please ask questions on anything. We have the subject matter experts here. If there's a question that we are not able to answer right now and that we feel that we need more research on to give you a proper answer, we will reply to you via email like we have in the past as well. We'll keep tabs of all the questions that don't get answered here. That way we make sure that you are receiving the information that you've requested. Again, we do have 30 days before the July meeting like we always do. So we encourage you guys to engage all department staff members for any questions that you have on this budget. We will reply to all council members, all directors, and the mayor with the reply so everybody has the information at the same time. So please engage us like you have in the past. We promote that. Engage yourselves here today during this discussion. We are here until 5 p.m. We do have slated tomorrow as well, 9 to 12. At the end of this meeting, we will ask you guys if you need that time again for us to meet. But right now, we're slated to go from today until 5 p.m. and then we'll take a poll on tomorrow. So again, please engage us with questions. We will present this budget book to you with limited, I guess, presenters. The presentations for today will be the mayor, myself, and Jenny. We will, in years past, you've had the departments deliver the presentations to you. We're going to try to streamline it, see if it works for you. You're going to hear the budget presented by the mayor for all the what we call enhancements. In an email I sent out a week and a half ago, we're going to use a new term called budget requests. So when you hear the enhancement or budget request, they go back and forth. They're the same thing. Going forward, we would like to start using the word budget requests instead of enhancements, but you'll hear it throughout the day. Just know that we're saying the same thing. The mayor will present those to you. Jenny will present the base budget. She'll present to you the revenues, and she'll present to you the replacements. I will present to you the growth discussion at the beginning of the presentation. And again, you have subject matter experts here. Please ask them. They can come up and answer any questions at any time. Again, the budget book is developed, has been delivered. It's in the same format. So before we get into the presentation, we'll give it to Jenny to give some housekeeping. We do have some additional documents we have to give to you since we've last published it a week ago. There have been some changes, so we will update you on those and how to get those into the book. But with that, Before I give it to Jenny, I just want to say thanks to the mayor, all the directors, all the staff members who've put in a ton of time to put that book in front of you. It takes the whole city to make this happen. Again, council, you've been involved since February with the base budget discussions. You've been involved in April with the enhancement discussions. So I just want to extend a thank you to you guys and all your time to get us to where we're at. We're not out of the woods yet. We still have some work to do. But I'm very confident with the book that you have in front of you today. But I just wanted to take time to say thank you to everybody, and especially thanks to Jenny and Brad who do 90% of that book work to put it together. They work a lot with all your staff members. So again, just want to take my 1 second to say thank you for everybody. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jenny to do some housekeeping for you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So there has been a few changes since we last delivered the base budget, or the budget book, last Thursday. So in front of you, you have a packet. The very first piece of paper is the summary of all the changes that have occurred. The following information, or the following documents, I'm going to walk you through so you can insert them and replace them in your book. So the, let's go with the documentation. So for your very first one is the summary sheet. The summary sheet of general fund, development services, and enterprise fund. So in your budget book, the tab that says summary, go ahead and replace this piece of document with the one that's in your book.
Just the first page?
No, the whole thing.
Summary.
The whole summary.
whole summary.
Yep.
It wasn't stapled before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I think everybody's got it. The next piece of paper is under the finance tab. This is an addition. This is a new budget request that was produced after the book was printed. So there's no replacement of this piece of document. This is just an additional. This is after the purple section.
Are these enhancements in any priority order? Just-
They are in priority order.
Yeah.
Yep.
So where does this one go on the top?
Top or the back?
Pretty much the top.
It's the top, yep.
Oh.
Good question.
Okay, everybody's got it? The
No,
next
no, no.
one is under
I'm under
your,
you.
okay.
I put it in the back. Okay, we're good now. We're good. Carry on.
All right, so next section is under your HR tab. Same thing, it's right after the purple sheet. Okay, next is IT. So under your information technology tab, again, this one is right after the purple sheet. Ready there? Okay. The next piece of document is an addition to the police department. This one's also after the purple sheet, but is the 7th one. So this is, you should have 6 budget requests or enhancements before this one. And it's numbered.
And- yeah. Multiple pages.
to the next department. Public Works is the next department. This one is right after the purple sheet. The yellow. Okay.
That's it, that's the only one. Any other one?
Wastewater is the next one. This one is right after the purple sheet. Last but not least is in your very last tab called Supporting Documents. You can insert it the very first page. This is not a replacement, this is just additional information. Okay, so now I'm going to go over all of these changes that have occurred.
For this one?
Yes, that one is the very last one,
Support.
Supporting Documents, right after the tab.
Top page.
So you should,
Sorry, I was just going to say, Madam Mayor, we should probably let the record show that Councilman Burton has joined us.
Yes, late.
so I provided a summary sheet of budget changes, so I'm going to go over those with you. The very first one is the market, or the merit proposal. What was printed in your book previously was 3%. We changed it from 3 to 2.5. The market adjustment was originally at 1.25. It's now changed to 2%. The following are additions that were added to your book. In the finance department, you'll find an equity adjustment, an amount of $1,421. HR also had an equity adjustment, a little over $4,000. IT, same thing, equity adjustment, an amount of $1,700. In our other government, there was a change, an increase to the Allenbaugh House contributions. We received the contribution estimates from the agency, and it went from $64,288 to $67,053, resulting in a $2,700 increase. In our police department, we had a slight modification to one of the budget requests. It was a reduction of $1,323. In the same department, in PD, we had added the precinct budget request of $2 million. In our Public Works department, there was an equity adjustment of an amount of $3,460. Wastewater had a personnel reclassification in the collections division in the amount of $6,600. So that is a summary of all the changes that have occurred since last Thursday. So now your book is up to date. With that, I will turn it back over to Tom.
Thank you, Jenny. So with the updated book, before I start, I'll let you know, you do have a balanced budget. We are using a few dollars in the fund balance to pay for one-time replacements and capital expenses that we've been planning for, that we've been saving for. But at the end of the day, you have a balanced budget. I will go ahead and answer the question. The budget that stands in front of you or sits in front of you has a 0% allowable tax request. So getting those two things off the top, just to let you know, that's where your budget stands right now. We'll go into the budget in my presentation. I'll talk about growth, but I just want to let you know you have a balanced budget with a 0% tax request at this time. Any comment, Mayor? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. At this point, I do want to give a heads up, and it'll probably be something that you'll hear between now and the July workshop. that the compensation committee is still meeting, and we just got the benefit evaluation back that will go to the compensation committee for discussion. And so there could be some impact to the budget that is yet to be seen.
Okay, thank you. So the agenda today, I'll present to you the growth discussion. I'll hand it off to Jenny to complete the general fund, enterprise fund review, which is all inside your book as well. And then at the end, we'll give you a total city budget. That tells you the total value. The mayor will present to you the budget request, which will be intermingled between the general fund and enterprise fund. And that is the agenda today. So I will start off with the growth discussion. This is the agenda I have slated for the growth agenda. I'm going to take a look at the past, look forward, discuss some of our changing landscape items, and discuss our challenges moving forward. Council members, do you need these two monitors behind us turned
Well,
so you can see them?
they're being used by everybody else in the okay. Yeah, I can't really see, or I could move maybe over there.
Pivot around.
Is that possible, Dave, or not? Okay.
This one,
So which one would you like moved for yourself, Genesis?
That one.
That one?
my eyesight's.
You guys
not
good over
going.
here?
Over there.
Oh,
I can't
Oh, what about you? You'll be able to see this one though.
do you want to look at these, Joe and Ann, or do you want
Or do
that?
that one.
This one's fine.
This one's good. Yeah, this one's good.
Yeah.
Most people don't see that one unless you sit in the very back row. Okay, the back row.
Perfect, right there. Good
Oh,
job.
I can see that.
Thank you.
Good job, Robert. That a boy?
I was gonna say, they can see,
I think we need to do a job reclassification.
I can see that one.
Oh, you can see this one too.
Yes,
Everybody have a good visual?
different
Yeah.
glasses on.
Thank you, Dave.
It's good team building.
Yeah.
Way to start it.
Yeah.
There it is. How about that? Problem solving?
Well thought.
Yes.
Move the monitor.
It was part of
It was all part of
Sure.
this strategy.
Oh, you guys have this dialed in.
All right, so with that, the growth discussion, looking at the past. You've seen this slide before. Starting in 2000, the year 2000, we're at 34,000, right around 35,000. Nothing new here. You guys have experienced a ton of growth since then. The city departments have had to adapt. They've had to change their methods of delivery. They've had to change their approaches, how they're going to give the services to both internal and external customers. Some departments, water and sewer, the fire and police, they've had to worry about expanding their services to the outer edges of the city limits. So not only just keeping it in the middle, going all the way to our outer edges. So what we're showing here is over the last number of years, the departments have been required to adjust the way they think about the budget, how they deliver their services. And this is going to be true going forward as well. Just wanted to show you that this is where we've been in the past. The next slide will show a comparison. We get asked, how are we compared to Boise? That's our next closest, largest city. So this is a look at the past of us versus the city of Boise. This data is acquired from Compass. The data represents population counts on those particular years. So in the year 1990, Boise had a little over 125,000, and we almost had 10,000 people in our population. So you can see the population counts going left to right. In 1990, you'll see a 13-to-1. What that represents is how many times larger Boise was than us. They were 13 times larger than us in 1990. Go across the screen to the right, now they're 2-to-1. We're almost half the size of them, which is awesome, which is amazing. So again, I just threw it out there because people ask us how are we compared to the city of Boise. There's your answer for your population. There's some fun little tidbits here for you. If you do the math, Boise from 1990 to 2019 grew that much. And if you quickly do the math on Meridian, you can see it's going to be very similar. So to think that we have grown at the same population rate as Boise is phenomenal. It's crazy to think that. We had an infrastructure set up for 9,000. They had an infrastructure set up for 125. So our today is basically their 1990 now. So we're now stepping into their 1990 shoes. But to ask our staff members to manage this amount of growth, basically building the city as people come here, is a huge testament to not only the previous council members, the mayors, the staff department. Again, I just want to give kudos to everybody in the past who's gotten us to where we are, because Meridian is now one of the best cities in the nation. It's been touted that in multiple publications. That didn't just happen by accident. It happened by proper planning, proper discussions, proper meetings like this. Our goal is to continue that trend to make sure the next 30 years represents the success that we've had in the past 30 years. Again, this doesn't just happen just by accident. And to make it even more fun, because we like numbers, Boise increased 88%. You can try to do the math real quick, but the answer is 1,095 is the amount of growth that we've experienced since 1990. So again, it's just fun percentages, but again, at the end of the day, kudos to the city and the staff for what they've done over the past 30 years. Our goal with the current staff members and how we develop our CFP plan is to mimic the success story over the last 30 year, and that's our goal. The budget you will hear about today has those same goals in mind to make sure that we're successful not only for 2020, but also for the next 10 plus years. So again, just little fun little tidbits of information for you about us in Boise. So again, continue to look at the past. You saw the growth in population. These are the permits of single family and multifamily. Over the timeline here, if you added up, our average permits per year is 1,213. We had a high back in 2005 at 3,300. Our low was in 1990 at 214. So again, 1,213 average permits, a very strong number. Commercial, we don't have the data back to 1990, so I have data back to 2005. And since 2011, our average is about 950,000 square feet of commercial space added. So that's a very consistent 8-year trend that we can work off of, and we use this data to help forecast our future. Again, we should see some peaks. We know we have some big projects coming up, and that's fine. We'll have some peaks and valleys. But I think on average, a good million a year is a strong, sustainable number for the city of Meridian to see and to continue to manage. Next slide is, this is a article, a publication called Governing. This was published in March 13, 2019. This reviewed all the cities in America that had the most permits pushed throughout the year, and lo and behold, we're number 7. Again, this is throughout the nation. Not too surprising given that we know that we're the 5th largest company, or 5th largest growing city in the nation. This graph supports the last graph. This is a Q1 report that we get from a data permit tracking company. You can see Meridian has a lot of interest in the submitted, so that just supports what we're seeing and hearing. This is telling us the future is in a continual growth process. And if you compare the submitted to the total submitted, you can see we make up over 3/4 of the bar. So if you add up all the other cities, we're still greater than all the cities combined. So we have a lot of interest here at the city of Meridian. So that's a strong future. That means a lot of growth and activity is going to occur. And as I referenced earlier, this is your top 5 fastest growing cities as published by the census a couple weeks ago, and we're number 5. So, and this is all news I know you've heard about. We just wanted to present it to you in the form that, you know what, the city is trying, I think we're doing a very successful job in managing this growth at an exponential rate. We're number 5, we're number 7. We've been doing this for the last number of years. So again, it's going to take the opportunity to give kudos to the staff, to you, council, to give us the resources that we need, but for us to continue to deliver the premier services that our citizens have come to expect. We need to continue to make sure we meet the staffing needs and the resources needs, because you can see the development's coming. The next few slides are going to support more development coming. You guys are the ones who approve all the development. So all the decisions that we make here with the development approvals has an impact on not only the staff, but all of our other community partners as well. So that is a look at the past. This is a look at the future. This data here represents information collected from Compass, from Census, from our internal department growth committee. This is where we believe we're going to be in about 10 years with permits for both multifamily and single family. 13,852 permits is what we think we're going to push over the next 10 years. That's roughly 30 to 40,000 more citizens, that's rooftops. So again, that's 30 to 40,000 more people that we expect to move in here in 10 years. You'll see the first 5 years are above our average of 1,213 over the last 30 years. So again, we still have 5 years of still strong growth. It looks like we're in a recession, but we're still above our average, so those are still strong growth years. Then we do slow down a little bit, but we adjust these numbers every single year with the Census, Compass, and our growth committee. So this is where we're at right now for the next 10 years. This next slide here shows you what our current inventory is, and what I mean by that, these are all things that you've already approved. You've seen them. Community Development Department tracks this, and what this represents is the inventory in the city that has not been constructed. So we still have these many more rooftops to come in full construction. So if you add up these 7,000 plus the other 14,000, you can see we have 21,000-ish new permit types that we're gonna have to manage over 10 years. It's a lot. This budget represents our goal to meet those requests that you've approved. It's our goal to make sure we're maintaining the services that our citizens have expected from us. So again, just wanted to show you kind of where we're going looking forward. This slide here kind of shows you the same graph, but now we added in 2030 to show you what's going on. And our biggest concern here on this graph or this picture, what it depicts is, it's the outer edges, how far we're asking our services and our staffs to now cover. It used to be a nice little shaded area in the middle. You can see we're getting all the way to the edges. Fire and police now have a larger response area. The enterprise fund now has to make sure they can provide the services all the way to the edges. So again, these are new challenges for us. We have to continue to adapt and change the way we approach our delivery methods, our planning methods. But I believe as long as we continue to have productive, collaborative discussions, we should be able to successfully navigate the growth to 2030. And the budget you have here is one of the starting points for the next 10 years. This next area is called what we're calling changing landscape. This just gives you a visual idea of that, I hate to use the word sprawl, but this is that impact of where new houses will be showing up by the year 2030. So between now and 2030, this is where we believe the new housing projects are going to be developed. And our goal here with this slide is to show everything's on the outer edges. That means we now have to focus all of our energy and attention to those outer edges. We have to think about how we're going to deliver the services. This is your employment heat graph. Between now and 2030, this is where we believe the new jobs will be showing up for the city of Meridian. Not too surprising right along I-84, not too surprising there, but you can see, look at the northwest. We have now some southwest projects. Again, new challenges for all of our service departments to now meet. Again, they're discussing how they're going to facilitate this, how they're going to meet the approved growth that we've done here in the council to approve all the development projects. So again, just a kind of visual idea of what we're managing and what we're building our budget to. This is a summary of what you've seen. Again, by the year 2030, we expect to have a little over 150,000 people. We're going to add about 11,000 jobs by 2030 and 13,000 more households that utility billing is going to have to facilitate, water and sewer is going to have to facilitate, fire and police are now going to have to make sure they provide services to. So again, a lot of growth occurring over the next 10 years, and we're going to do what we can to successfully navigate this change. The next slide is very similar to the previous one for household changes, but we just wanted to show you our neighboring cities. It's not just the city of Meridian that we have to manage, it's our neighboring cities. We have a great working relationship with them, but we also need to take into consideration their changes. If you notice, we're right in the middle. A lot of things, a lot of cars drive through us, a lot of activities within us. So we need to take all of the aspects into consideration. Our daytime traffic changes dramatically on Fairview and Eagle and other roadways. So the outside agencies or outside cities, we also need to continue to look at and work with them so that we can make sure that all the residents in the valley are receiving the services that we can deliver to them. But ideally, we need to focus on City of Meridian, but we just wanted to show you that a lot of activity on the west side of our area and the northwest is going to be impacting the services and our city limits on that side. And the same thing with deployment. This is the same slide with the Treasure Valley included. You can see a lot of interest on that west side of our border or the east side of Nampa. A lot of stuff up in the north. So again, these are all just things that we use in our growth committee that we use to discuss how we're going to plan for the next 10 years. Just wanted to share these slides with you. It's not just the City of Meridian, it's also our fellow neighboring agencies that we need to continue to work with to make this a successful next 10 years. You've heard me say some of the words on this slide. You know, how are we going to do this? It's a daunting challenge. We've done it for the last 30 years successfully. Our goal is to do it again for the next 10 years and 30 years successfully as well. This slide just shows you some of the concerns that some of the departments will have. I did throw a few items on here at the bottom, last three: roadways, schools, and libraries. We all understand we don't have a direct impact on their decision making, but I do want to take an opportunity to discuss the impacts that we have on them by the decisions we make. They're one of our stakeholders: roadways, schools, highways. The development community is a stakeholder. We have to take into consideration all the stakeholders on every decision we make. And there is one stakeholder group I've left out purposely, but last but not least is our employee group, guys. Every time we approve this vast amount of growth, we have to think about all the stakeholders at once. We understand development is doing very well, as you can see from the growth in our projections. They're going to do very well. Schools, roadways, and libraries, they don't get a direct decision that you guys get. We are imposing new requests upon them, and they don't get to make those changes as fast as we do. So I just ask that we take them into consideration. We know as we make these decisions, roadways are behind. I know Ty is a big proponent of getting the roads correct. Well, we're making those decisions that are impacting their inability to keep up with our growth. Schools, we know schools are behind. We know libraries are behind. They're going out for bonds to keep up with our decisions to continue to increase the development and the growth. And then, again, last but not least, our employee group. Again, they've successfully managed the 30 years. We need to continue to support them. We don't want them to continue to push more product and not deliver the quality that we want of them. It's great to push things fast, but we don't want to sacrifice the quality. You've asked us to deliver a premier city, and that is not only from the services, but that's also the internal customer service. I just ask that the decisions that we make, think of all the stakeholders that are involved. Don't forget the roadway group. Don't forget the schools, the libraries. Don't forget the employees, guys. That's all I ask. The next 30 years is going to be just as bad, just as fast as the last 30 years. This is just me asking. Think of all the stakeholders when we get these development groups, development plans in front of you. That's all I ask. I will touch on two departments in particular, police and fire. I reached out to them. I said, if you could project what you would need by 2030, how many more employees would you need? To give you an idea, fire department alone will need at least police department alone will need at least 38 more police officers alone just in the next 10 years to meet the growth model that we're projecting here and all the development we're approving. Fire has projected they're going to need Station 7, Station 8, Station 9, 1 ladder truck, and 2 ARVs in the next 10 years if we continue to push the outer edges of our development to the boundaries. So again, these are all stakeholders that we have to always consider as we're pushing all of our development to the outer edges, as those pictures showed. Obviously, if we kept everything tight and density-based, be a much different story, but we're not. We're doing, I hate to use the word sprawl, but we're doing the sprawl. We're getting to the edges. I just ask that we all think about those other stakeholders, not just us, but the other stakeholders as we approve this development over the next 10 to 20 years. And with that, I will go ahead and get off my soapbox and allow any questions on the growth discussion before I hand it off to Jenny.
Any questions?
You can get a copy of that slideshow.
I'm happy to send this slideshow to you guys after the meeting, yes.
With that, I'm going to present the general fund first. The agenda for the general fund will be, we're going to talk about assumptions, revenues, then we're going to go right into the base budget expenditures, replacement expenditures, and budget requests before I hand it over to the mayor, which is also known as enhancements. We will wrap this up for the general fund by talking over some summaries of how everything stacks up. So the following budget slides and future budgets are developed based on many of the data that Todd just presented. With all the approved projects for single-family, multifamily, and commercial, we must continue to plan responsibly for our community. With that, I'm going to talk a little bit about assumptions that we have in the general fund. So, as Todd has discussed, the proposal in front of you today does not take any allowable portion of the property tax increase. Just for information purposes, the 3% allowable increase would be the equivalent of a little over $1 million. That is $8.94 annually for every $100,000 of taxable property taxable value. Our levy rate projection is about 0.0032. That is down from previous years of 0.0034. Our fiscal year 2020 compensation plan, as we discussed earlier, we're proposing a 2.5 market recommendation. That's an equivalent of $295,000. Now that does not include fire union and fire step plans. We are recommending a 2% market adjustment. That is an equivalent of $236,000. And again, that does not include fire union and police plan. This year, in your proposed budget, it does not include any police step plan adjustments. For our fire department, we have included in there a roughly amount of $117,000. Our medical benefits will not be changing. There will be a 0% adjustment from our carrier Blue Cross. We'll continue on with general fund assumptions. The items that are represented on this list are increases to our fiscal year 2020 budget, and that we want you to remind you of. We are working with other neighboring agencies to discuss what the future implications are with all of the Treasure Valley agencies. So Idaho Humane Society, Boise Prosecution Services, Valley Regional Transit, and then a reminder that Fire Station 6 is online for fiscal year 2020, and our streetlight dig line locates are an increase to our budget this year. Let's talk revenue. So in the proposed budget, general fund total revenue projection is around $61,834,000. That is made up of, majority of it is property tax, 58%, intergovernmental revenue, which is 60%. Those are inclusive of state revenue, state liquor, rural fire, and grants. 10% of impact fees is the makeup of our total revenue in the general fund, 5% of other, and 3% of franchise fees. So how this stack up from last year? The property tax, we're looking at about a 6.39% increase from fiscal year 2019 budget. Intergovernmental is about 15.31, and where you can see development services is down a little bit, 6.53, and other general fund revenues are up about 3%, 3.36. I'm going to provide you some numbers here. So how property tax, because property tax makes up the majority of our general fund revenue, property tax changes from fiscal year 2019 to 2020, base budget portion of the tax increased about 2.6 million. That is the bar graphs, on the bars on your left. New construction increased a little bit. They increased around $813,000. You can see allowable increase is 0 and annexation increase. We're going to switch gears and talk about expenditures. Total general fund expenditures for fiscal year 2019 at the moment is $62,238,000. Majority of it is in personnel, which makes up of 68%. Ongoing is about 17%, and capital is about 17% for the general fund. Okay, general fund base budget. These are the items that we discussed in length during our March meetings with the departments, directors, and liaisons, and mayor. So compared to our last year's base budget, we're looking at a 2.66% increase. Now, compare that against our population growth that Todd just presented, about 6.1% previously mentioned. You can see that we're growing our base at a much slower and moderate pace, and that's a good thing. Total personnel base budget changes compared to last year. It's about a 2.69% change. And total operating base budget change is about 2.14%. I'm going to change and talk about replacements. General fund replacements this year is about $2.17 million. Majority of it is in our equipment. It encompasses around $1,260,000 of equipment. Vehicles, we do have about 14 vehicles that are being replaced, and the value totals around $680,000. Technology infrastructure, those are our computer and printer and copier replacements. That is a total of $194,000. You can't really see it here, but the this little green graph is software. Software is around $26,000.
And I'm going to jump in real quick. As we transition to the budget request, just want to let you know, all the information that Jenny just went through is inside your budget books on those summary sheets. Again, it's the same information that you have, just delivered differently. You notice that we didn't use departments like we have in the past. Now we're using just overall general. Everything that Jenny presented to you is in your books in line item detail. So if you want the details, they're there. If you have questions, please let us know. I just want to reiterate that everything you have is at your fingertips on those summary sheets that Jenny handed out later, but then even more detail as you go farther into the book. So we're just displaying the information just a little bit differently as we have in the past. This part is, oh yes, Joe.
Question. I got a Jenny question.
Yes.
Me too.
On the,
Perfect.
Okay.
on the cover sheet, the new
Yes.
one. I'm looking at the general fund merit proposal.
Yes.
The one in the original binder at 3%, total 540,000 and change.
Mm-hmm.
The new one at 2.5 is 219.
That was a test, Joe. Just kidding.
You passed.
You passed.
Congratulations.
So the original summary that was presented in your books, there was a typo in there. So the correction has been made. So the revised summary sheet is the most accurate. So Joe passed our test.
Right.
We were wondering.
Nice job, Joe. Good job.
I leaned over and told him.
Oh.
I got marked.
Not really.
Thank you, Jenny.
So apologize. Yes.
So, I guess I'm just wondering when growth does start paying for itself. So looking at your numbers as far as the per 100,000, and then you remember in years past it was a cup of coffee. So with all of this new houses online that are paying taxes,
Mm-hmm.
now the 3% would be 3 cups of coffee. 2 really good cups of coffee at least per 100,000. Was it 8 something?
8.94.
Eight point nine
That was
four
$9.
a year.
$9.
Yeah.
Right, so why is that such a significant higher, so definitely higher number?
Then
A cup of coffee for every 100,000, which was like $3.65 or $4 or something.
I will research that for you. I'll go grab what it was from 3 years
We
ago.
also have more homes, more
Right.
properties paying in to the fund. So it seems like that should go down.
I agree. I don't think the number was $3, but I'll double check. If I'm wrong, then I'll go ahead and double check. I'll double check that right now for
I
you.
guess it depends on if you're drinking a jumbo cappuccino or a Americano,
Starbucks.
but
Very true. Great.
still, I don't think it was $9. I think that number is a lot higher than what it was.
I'll get the slides from the previous 3-4 years and let you know exactly the numbers that we posted for you, and then we'll be able to answer it then. Thank you.
Other questions? None at this time?
Well, with this, I'm going to hand out some paper to you.
So under this new format, we are using the 5 different city focus areas and looking at our requests that we received and relating them to each of these areas, which we required that each of the departments did on all of the request forms. And you'll see that in each enhancement, how the departments felt they aligned with the strategic focus areas. And we've not taken and put them in every focus areas that they relate to, more the general one that has the most relationship to it. We've also, so you'll see on the left-hand side, these are the enhancements that have a relationship with maintaining a level of service and that is related to an existing service that already exists and to maintain levels of service. The right-hand column will be enhancing levels of service or new programs. So I'm going to focus on the enhancing service, new programs. However, at the end of each strategic focus areas, if you have any questions on any of the items on there, please let me know.
Mayor, just let you know, I did hand out a copy of each of these 5 focus areas for your council members to keep track of, so they have them in front of them.
Perfect. So I'll first go into the first, or fixed route transit. You had a presentation that Caleb did a couple of months ago on this particular enhancement or request. I'll try and get out of enhancements. But it is enhancing levels of service. So this is a first step in the Connect 2.0 to reduce commuter traffic. This will connect 3 cities, so Nampa, Meridian, and Boise. It picks up at 10 Mile from Nampa, and it connects 10 Mile to downtown to the village. And so this goes through 3 of our employment areas, which it also connects. And it also runs through our LMI area that we feel this enhanced service will serve not only employment, but will connect to services as well. This is also dependent on if we get matching funds for the vehicles. If we do not, we won't move forward with this segment enhancement. So,
Madam Mayor,
yes.
I guess I would, before our July meeting, or I'd like to get some kind of an update from them, I guess, on that. There's also, part of the request was for them to try to get some funding partners from the businesses that this would be serving. And we haven't had an update on that. They were going to have some conversations, and before I approve we shouldn't be approving the entire amount in our budget because that was kind of part of the request from us, at least for me.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I wasn't there during that presentation, but I do see VRT is here, and we will bring that back as part of the pre-regular agenda item and have an update. Okay, the next item is the Northwest Police Precinct Station. You heard this a little bit when you heard the Central Valley development presentation that they anticipated a police substation in there. The police, and this is part of their strategic growth to help with response times to the northwest area of our community. It will add 3,000 or 6,000 square feet of flex space. So we're looking at being part of a flex portion, and which allows us a little bit of growth room. It will also, you don't see anything but capital in this request. Next year, they'll come back to request the equipping it and staffing it as well. So this is the first phase. We wanted to make it so it was doable, and this will allow us to work with the developers with design and construction and our TI portion.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry if you said it. Where is that anticipated to go?
In the area that you just approved at Chinden and Highway 60 in the Central Valley,
Yeah, health part.
yeah, medical
Medical.
center.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
does that impact fees?
Yes, this is impact fee. And actually, it is impact fee funds that need to be spent before they expire. So the timing has been very fortuitous, and with the high school coming up in the area with a lot of the new developments, that area has been an area that's been challenged as far as response time. Okay, and economic vibrancy, we do not have any enhancing service or program requests. So I don't have anything specific to touch base on that regard. In responsive government, we do have 4 items that I'll comment on in terms of enhancing services, and in some cases it's more saving time and building in efficiencies. So first, we have the commissions and committee software. This will save over 800 man-hours a year to help track a number of different items as they relate to committees and commissions. It will also add new tools to help us track years of service, attendance. We do have per our ordinance an attendance requirement, and it allows, it gives tracking of that. It also will help us with the application process. So those that have indicated an interest that they want to serve the city, but they're not selected, it will help us pull their names forward in each area to see if they're still interested in perhaps what that opening would be. So this saves a lot of staff time, and will put everything in one area and make it easily accessible for staff. OpenGov dashboard reporting. This is OpenGov Part 2. We have seen that there has been use both internal and external in terms of using OpenGov as a resource. this is that next level in finding, bringing transparency to our financial information and showing how we're meeting our KPIs. And we'll be working with departments to develop areas that they would like to tell the story to the community and to our council members, but also it helps them run internal reports as well. It makes it very, there's an ease of use to this, and again, we think it brings transparency and greater accountability to our way of doing business. This is an example of the dashboard, and I'm sorry you can't probably really see that. We use the public safety example, and these are using existing data points that are currently being tracked, so it will be easy to input, and it brings it into a very usable form for those that are needing it. Anything you want to add?
The greatest value I think we're going to see here is the ease of the access of data to all of our users. So we'll work with all of our users to determine what information is most important and pertinent to them, and we'll be able to put it on one dashboard, on one location, and it's all 100% mobile. So if you have a parks maintenance manager out there who needs to have certain access to certain accounts, you'll have it at his fingertips of the accounts that he's most responsible for. If you have a water works person out there who's responsible for certain budgets, we'll have the data at his fingertips on a phone in his set dashboard requests for each individual. So again, as the mayor said, efficiency is our goal here, transparency is our goal here, and we think this helps the city of Meridian continue that push.
Okay, the next one has been a very robust discussion at our senior management level. This is an enterprise content management system that, in other words, I relate it to Laserfish. We see that used in our clerk's office and in our police department. This would allow it to go enterprise-wide, so all departments could use it. It would be it's a huge asset to manage a records retention that is established per our code, and it allows better search engines, and again, it is phase 1 of 3 different phases. The first one being next year at 40,000, and then it grows from there. A lot of the cost will be the subscription for the users once it's fully in place, but we see that this will be huge in saving time and managing our growing numbers of records and that sort of thing. And certainly Dave TD in our IT department is extremely passionate about this, and he will give you everything you need to know and more if you want more information on this item. This will be a critical one for operations. The police station improvements is in anticipation of being able to house the growing number of personnel in our police department. I can tell you that in the early 2000s, when we started the space study and the citizens group that helped us bring a recommendation for what the police station should look like, we never anticipated the number of population or employees that this would house. This would allow us to do a space study to analyze the space that we currently have. And as you see on this slide, these are a number of the different considerations that need to be built into a plan and then put into place. as it relates to those improvements. So this is really needed to help us manage our work areas and be able to accommodate the new bodies that are being hired. Safe, healthy, and secure. We have 4 areas that are enhancing or new programs. The EMS Division Chief. This is a non-union position because it does have decision-making authority. It will be a huge asset at sitting at the table for countywide EMS discussions regarding medical protocol, and we haven't had a consistent presence as part of that. This also has direct oversight of the CPR and first aid functions of the fire department and the outreach to our community. It will manage our EMT, basic EMS training as required by our state license in providing paramedic level service to our community. And it's needed to manage our relicensing requirements for all of our employees as well as their certifications. So this would have a huge impact in maintaining a service that right now has been divided among a number of different employees and keeping a very focused approach to our EMS offering. Oh, sorry. So if you want to see that, it is also in your book. So this just takes some of that information off of that. The next area is the training center, and that's also known as Scenario Village. This has been under discussion with City Council for the last 10 years. It is phase 2. The first phase was the Public Safety Training Center, and this has a number of different components to it. So I'm not even using my notes. And I do have an illustration of a master plan that you saw several years ago. This allows for 2 buildings up in the upper left corner. Those are multi-levels and allows for ease of using different props and scenarios to give our police and fire training. In the lower corner is a residential component that also stages different scenarios that we would find in our community. Just to the right of that is a fire prop, and that red picture in the upper right side is kind of a concept of what that would look like. This can take water and allows additional training that is not currently assessed in our training tower that we have today. To the right of that is a grieving shelter. It is a place where they will assess the different things going on. It gives a shaded area to that whole facility. We can certainly bring back more information if you want an update from the department on that. This is what is currently envisioned, and that fire training component is using shipment containers that can be easily replaced and is lower cost in order to continue to allow that particular training function. The rescue vehicle is something the chief and I have talked about, is what is the right timing for this? We have seen and we've appreciated the council's support and both in person and emotional for our police department, as we have seen an increase in violent crimes. This will not only blend into our community, but be a safe shelter for our public safety personnel as well as our citizens, and certain heightened responses that we have started to see in the valley. And unfortunately, we know we're not immune to it. The question is always, what is the right timing? Can it wait another year? Well, maybe, but if you need it and you don't have it, then my crystal ball that I think Genesis wanted the other night, we're still looking for one that works. But I think that this is an important enhancement to bring as a safety component to our public safety personnel. This is what it would look like. It does have a lot of for public safety protections in it. It can fit up to 8 people, and we feel it's an important component, and a lot of storage in there for various equipment, medical equipment, and response needs. I think if anyone had been to the Ada County Emergency Response, they did something similar. It's a little bit more decked out than this. We think that this is very fiscally prudent.
Is what, excuse me, Mayor, is what?
Fiscally prudent. This is a request from our police department for training software, and it's to really be able to capture all the different requirements of training for all of our officers. It is a records management thing. We do have a training software in fire and in public works. They are all slightly different, so they don't apply. But in talking to our IT, as we start to need this, because we do need a citywide training software that documents what we're using. We would like to move to a citywide function, but we can't continue to limp along in our police department. I think that is a little bit further down the road. But I do know that they've been working with IT on this, and this is a resource that's sorely needed. And then finally, in our 5th area of arts, culture, and recreation, we have 4 enhanced areas in here. Our first being a public-private mural program. This is anticipated for our downtown. We've had requests for public-private partnerships. This is a low cost and I think a high impact type of project that we can do in partnership with the public sector or private sector in our downtown to continue to give placemaking and identity to our downtown realm. The Parks and Recreation intern position request is really centered around an industry standard. Most parks departments have intern programs, and many of the universities that look for these interns, these are paid positions. It would, of course, be a part-time summer position, but they are involved in almost all realms of the public or of the park system, from summer camps to the sports arena for home court and for events. They'll get involved in all of that, and because they are studying in these areas, they lend different insights and perspectives that we think it can be a win-win for both the Parks Department and for an internship. Discovery Park Phase 2, this is the design for the anticipated next phase. The design will dictate the 2021 request for construction of this. And in the conceptual master planning, we do have some concepts of what this phase 2 will bring, but the design aspect will do a lot of the cost engineering and what the design needs to be, and help us with what the cost will be when we move forward with the request for construction. This is impact fee eligible. Heroes Park parking expansion design. As we move forward with the expansion of 10 Mile, we lose our parking lot on 10 Mile Road. It's never been a safe parking option, but parents do it. They even drop their kids off and have them run across the road to get to their soccer game or soccer practices. That will maybe is a blessing in disguise, having the widening, because it will eliminate that behavior. But we need to replace some of that parking that we know is going to be needed. We do have a partnership with the Police Activities League, PAL. They will pay for 50% of this in a similar fashion to the existing partnership that we have with them today. So this continues a great partnership with PAL. And PAL is at the tail end of the reimbursement for the first part of that partnership. It should be, so it should just continue that positive relationship. So those are the budget requests for those areas that are enhancing or new projects. The other ones are related to maintaining levels of service, and certainly we can stand ready to answer any questions that you might have.
Madam Mayor.
Ms. Roberts.
Couple of questions on the safety, health, and secure, the number of police officers. And then I was curious about, was the K-9 officer the one that's dedicated to the schools, or is this another K-9 officer?
This is another K-9 officer. I think this is in response to the dog that has been a desired purchase from the MADC. Is that true? No. Chief, do you? Yeah.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Little Roberts. This is a additional K-9. We've had a plan in place for at least 10 years to have 6 patrol cross-trained dogs on, and so this would be the addition to that. The MADC school drug dog is still in the works, but it hasn't come to fruition yet, and so that would be a dog that would be assigned to the schools, but this one would be actually on patrol.
Follow up, are we contributing anything toward the K-9, school K-9?
Right now, it's just staff time. They've been advised exactly all of the areas that would have to be covered, but the plan hasn't come forward yet. So I guess we could always supplement this plan with the dog, and I'd come back in front of you and we could discuss that. But right now, this is completely separate from what they're trying to do. It's a great idea what they're trying to do, but they haven't come forward with any money yet.
Follow up?
And to the second part of your question about number of officers. The total FTE request from the police department was 16. This recommendation brings 10 of those positions in front of you. A lot of the conversation we had was in terms of what is realistic to think we can hire and train and have the FTOs get them up and operating on their own. We also have a number of retirements that are going to challenge our hiring and being able to fill those positions too. This is, I feel, is a realistic something that's achievable in filling these positions. And one of the discussions we had with command staff is, as these retirements start to move forward, and I think, Chief, how many positions are coming up for retirement?
Madam Mayor, Council, there is 2 only currently slotted for the rest of this year, and there's 3 that are eligible for next year. There's about 38 over the next 5 years. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So one of the questions and discussion points that we had with the command staff is, if you get a pool of qualified applicants and they make it through the various vetting programs that the police have, would there be flexibility, knowing that there's a retirement coming up, to have some overlap of a new recruit before someone retires? Council's been very open to those conversations, and just having that assurance makes them feel comfortable with the personnel that we're bringing forward in this budget.
I guess follow up. How many were we able to hire this year?
Chief?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Little Roberts, we currently are processing 9 with the hopes of having 9 additional bodies on for October. Those are not in what we're counting on right now. So I don't know. It's
a moving
ever-evolving process, and sometimes it's a lot of bodies, sometimes it's 1 or 2 bodies, and so we're continuously doing hiring and training and putting them out there, so doing that as fast as we can.
Follow up, if we had a phenomenal recruitment opportunity and could get 16, if that's what we really need, but they're not in the budget, would it be, okay, we're not using budget enhancement, would we?
You'll have a budget amendment in front of you with that request. And the time that Chief Levy has been our chief, I think we've accomplished fully staffed once, and that lasted 6 weeks. Am I exaggerating?
It was 3 weeks.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
3 weeks.
More positive.
I just wouldn't want us to miss an opportunity because it wasn't in the budget, if we had it in front of us.
And that is the conversation we have with the command staff. If we had that opportunity, council would be approached and with a request.
Okay, thank you.
We think that would be a good problem to have.
Agreed.
Other questions? Okay. Todd, I'll turn this up to you.
Jenny, yeah, can I ask a question to Jenny?
Yeah.
Again, it's more of a summary sheet question.
Okay.
We had, last year, we had, you know, revenue broken down to kind of carve out growth-related revenue sources to see for better or for worse, what that is. On page 3.
Do you want me to hold it for you?
Page 3 of this, of the summary sheet, it has additional revenue from growth, 3.387. Is that up there? What's that comprised of?
Your questions are,
Yeah, go ahead.
great question, Joe. I think we're going right where you want us to go.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what you're doing?
This is
next?
the famous
That's
Joe
what-
slide.
yes.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Yes. That's next. If you,
Can I table that and ask a different one?
yeah,
Yes.
yes, good.
Maybe it's the next one of the slides too. Last year, did we talk about medical benefit costs as an additional component? Did we not include that or discuss that yet? As an additional, like an enhancement, an increased
Medical
cost?
benefit costs.
Yeah, the cost of benefits increasing. We discussed it last year. I had a percentage, had a dollar figure that I think it was one of those above the line items.
So this year in the assumptions at the beginning of the
0.
presentation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Janice has got it. We are putting in a 0% change for our benefit costs.
So,
Zero. So we are not presenting any extra costs associated to medical benefits for 2020.
and that conclusion comes from what?
Good history.
Well, from our our benefit committee, we work with Mercer, and we felt that with the changes that we're utilizing, we feel that the budget that we have set forth is not going to increase the budget from 19 to 20. We don't think it's an increase in our budget because of the cost savings that we're doing with self-funding and other things like that.
And just to follow up, Joe, the compensation committee will be looking at the benefits analysis and how self-funding and some of that all plays into the benefit recommendations that would be moving forward. Todd and Crystal have worked on putting costs to the various areas, and that's what the compensation committee will be looking at as well.
Okay. I'll wait.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Any other questions on the 5 focus areas and the budget requests that were presented to you by the mayor? Good. We have your subject matter experts here. Again, you're more welcome to ask questions between now and July. Please do so. Reach out to us, and that way we can answer any questions that you have on the budget requests that are inside your budget book as well.
More question. Who would I reach out to in regard to the commission's committee enhancement for 18.9?
That is the city clerk's request. So, but what we would like to do is take all the questions and then get it back out to all of the council.
Maybe just some clarity. I don't know. I mean, I'll just sit down and talk to the clerk. I don't know if I have a real question. I'm just more interested in more information. I don't know if I necessarily have a specific question per se.
Okay. I won't put you on the spot.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to the newly appointed city clerk, Chris. Congrats. Reach out to him, ask questions, and we'll make sure to share the answer and the dialogue with all the council members between you and Chris. So thank you. So if there's no further questions at this time, again, feel free to reach out to us anytime between now and July. We'll get the answers to you. But I think this next slide answers where Joe was asking us about. We've used this slide in the past. It kind of walks you through the revenue and expenditures from our base all the way to our bottom line. So I'll hand it off to Jenny.
Okay, so putting it all together, the general fund, we will start off with our revenues. So just keep in mind this, the following numbers does not include impact fee revenues or expenditures or community development. So the general fund to start with, we're going to start with the base budget revenue. We are projecting that their revenue is going to be $46,312,000. Essentially, this is our last year's revenue. This is what we're going to start off with, and then we're going to transfer $500,000 to our capital improvement and our public safety fund, right off the bat. And it is on your summary sheet at very top portion before the yellow. So then we will subtract out our base budget expenditures. These are the expenditures that we worked with council liaison departments in the month of March. So the total base budget for the general fund expenditures are around $44 million. With that leaves us with discretionary revenue available for replacements of $1.7 million. Now, our replacement expenditures are around $2.1 million. So if we subtract that from our discretionary revenue, we will then add additional funding sources. We're going to utilize our general fund balance, our savings account, and then our interagency also has additional revenues contributed to our revenue sources. That totals around $346,000. So when we take that, add the additional revenue sources back to our replacements and our discretionary revenue, that leaves us with a budget gap in the operating side of $61,000. Now, the next portion is growth. So our new growth revenue is about $3.38 million. If we add that, and we are utilizing CIP fund balance, and again here, interagency, which is rural fire revenue, we then subtract out our budget requests, or aka enhancements, of totaling $7.5 million, broken out by existing services and enhancements. We balanced our budget. So this is how the formula looks like when we balance our general fund budget for fiscal year 2020. Now, Joe, do you still have additional questions for us?
No. It's the same question every year, I guess. The 3.3 and the 4.2, is it fair to characterize those as one-time revenue sources? Or non-recurring revenue sources?
The 4.2 is non-reoccurring. Those are the one-time expenses that the mayor referenced, that we're going to use our savings account. That was what we've been saving for, that save and spend, save before you spend. So that is all one-time expenditures. The 3.3 is a ongoing revenue source of new revenues generated by the state, by the property taxes and things like that. So we can, if we stopped all new growth and everything, that number would be zero if we froze time. That's time. But those are all the new growth revenues above and beyond what we currently have between the state and the Ada County property taxes.
We don't have. Okay. It's not recurring in the same sense as base budget revenue.
The new growth revenue?
Correct.
Well, again, it all depends on next year's revenue projections. Those will roll up into the base budget revenue, and those will be established as your base budget revenue for fiscal year 2021.
So the 3.3 is effectively recurring once it's built into the new.
As long as the numbers come in, because those are all mandated by the state of, a lot of them are mandated by the state. We don't have the leverage to pull, so these are the current forecasts for 2020. 2021 might look completely different. If they reduce the state revenue sharing program, if they reduce the revenue liquor license, that impacts our base budget revenue. I don't know of any reductions in the next fiscal year, so in theory, as long as the legislature doesn't change, that should roll with us.
Well, and that's, I think that was the question for Kenny. The 3.3, 2.5 of that's new construction.
800,000 was new construction. Or I see what you're saying, yes, 2.5.
Right.
That is correct.
And so 2.5 is a recurring revenue source, assuming we perpetually grow and.
Assume. You're 100%
Assuming we
correct.
don't, that isn't really a new revenue source going forward from a
Going
new
forward.
construction.
You got it.
All right.
You got it, Joe.
And I just asked that question because that, distinguishing that in relation to the budget request, and what portion of the 7.5 is capital versus recurring expenditures? We talked about last year. That's the,
You got it?
it's, maybe there's a graph coming up
Uh,
showing.
We don't have a graphic showing it. It's in your budget book. If you look at your personnel budget and your ongoing budget operating, those would dictate or tell the story of how much we need in ongoing revenues to meet our ongoing expenditure requests of the 7.5 million. Yep. And the mayor and I, we go through this to make sure that that request is not larger than the new growth revenue, because then that would be bad financial management. So we make sure that we always have more revenues than we do in the request that we're submitting to you for ongoing needs.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
That concludes the general fund portion of the 2020 budget presentation. So if there's no other questions right now, again, feel free to reach out to us anytime. We'll transition into the enterprise fund. We'll do the enterprise fund the same way. We'll go through the assumptions, base budget, the replacements. The mayor will give you the new enhancements or budget requests for 2020. Subject matter experts are here. Please engage us. And then we'll finish up with the summary, and then we'll finish up with the total city summary. And that, after that slide, that concludes the presentation from the executive branch to you guys for your fiscal year 2020 budget.
Okay. Enterprise fund. So same agenda. We're going to go off of some assumptions, revenue, talk about base expenditures, replacement requests, budget requests, also known as enhancements, and then finish out with our budget summary. So enterprise fund assumptions. Our 2020 compensation plan, again, sorry about the numbers. It should say 2.5 market or merit and 2% market adjustment. And those numbers are reflected in the summary sheet that you have. If you go to the enterprise fund summary, those are up at the top, right above the yellow line. Sorry about that. So medical benefits for enterprise fund, again, 0% adjustment from Blue Cross in fiscal year 2020. Our enterprise fund total revenues are about $44,527,000. That is made up, majority of it is in our utility sales. That's 59%, and then utility connections is about 32%. Here's how it stacks up or compared to fiscal year 2019. So the utility sales revenue increased about 6.16%. Utility connections is an increase of 43.69%. And other utilities around 12.44.
And I have no problem, I'll go ahead and explain the 43.69. So that's the 2019 budget versus 2020. When I built the 2019 budget for utility connections, I was very conservative. I wasn't predicting 3,000 connections. So you're doing budget to budget. We've adjusted this year's budget to show a more aggressive connection, hence why it's much larger than last year. So I was much more conservative last year. These are budget to budget. When I present to you your actuals in February, you'll see the actual number much higher. So that is why it unfortunately looks so bad or so good in this case. I was much more conservative last year with your connections. This year's truing up the data with the current trends.
So enterprise fund major revenue sources. Water revenue is up about $500,000, so from 8.8 million last year to 9.3. Sewer revenue is up by around 980,000, so we're at around 16.9 million this year. Water connection is around 4.7. That is up by 1.3 million from fiscal year 2019. Sewer connections are around 9.5 million, up 2.9 from last fiscal year. Total expenditures for enterprise fund for fiscal year 2020 is about $30 million and a little over $30 million. The majority of it is in personnel, 33%. Capital is the other component, big component, 29%. Ongoing operating costs is around 26%. And they do have interfund transfers from general fund of 10%. Enterprise fund total base, they're growing from, compared to last year, last fiscal year, total base increased about 1.4%. Total personnel base budget is an increase of 1.14% compared to last year. And their operating base budget is up 1.9%. So very minimal. Replacements. Enterprise fund replacements is around $2.49 million. Majority of it, 2.2 million, is in utility infrastructure. Now, utility infrastructure represents water line replacements and sewer line replacements. Equipment is around $106,000. Vehicles, they are replacing 2 vehicles at $80,000 total. And then technology infrastructure, computers, electronics is around $59,000. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Mayor. And Todd's going to pass out.
Thanks, sir.
You'll see it primarily in public works is just maintaining existing service and current programs. So I do have 4 requests that fall in the enhanced service or programs, and those were even at that, a stretch. So I'll first talk about the post-aeration improvements. Currently, our blower system is oversized, and it's causing some pH concerns in the water that is being put back into the system. I love talking about this one. It's flea reproduction. By properly sizing our blower system, will be allowed to reproduce a flea. And that's very important in our regulations for our MPDES permit.
Mayor, can you push the button?
Oh, sorry. It won't talk about the flea in that, but I think that we anticipate a 2-year payback because the lower or the smaller blower will use less energy. The current one uses a lot of energy, and that savings alone will pay for this project in 2 years. So again, it is about the excessive aeration that causes some chemistry imbalance, and this new blower system will improve that chemistry balance and save on electricity costs.
Mayor,
Yes.
what led to us, I don't even know what this device or thing is, but why did we have that one instead of whatever we needed?
Why did we oversize it to begin with? I don't know, Dell and I didn't talk about that one. Dell, if you'll come up here so we can capture it.
I wouldn't have thought the first thing that would bring some of the staff up would have been enterprise.
You know, it's, I think it's an example of the evolution of the knowledge of our wastewater treatment staff. So this is the final step before our effluent basically one of the final steps before it enters back into 5 Mile Creek where we discharge. And in the past, it was always aerated, and the more air, the better. So when that system was originally sized decades ago, it was just pumping air into water, oxygenating it, and discharging it. When we got into the new NPDES requirements, the plant discovered that over aeration causes an adjustment in the water chemistry as reflected in pH, and that pH was causing issues with our wet testing, which includes the infamous flea reproduction. And so through that knowledge and trial and error, they were able to determine that the over-oxygenation was not necessary. In fact, it was detrimental, and they needed to turn the whole system down. We can't do that with this oversized single-speed drive motor system. So that basically puts in a more adequately sized blower and motor system so that we can turn it way down, and as a result, we don't waste a ton of energy in trying to accomplish that process.
Mayor, so will the new setup work for our future growth, or would we ever need to go back to?
Well, you're likely, as the volume increases, that we'll have to add to it, but this will satisfy our needs for some time. And it's relatively an inexpensive fix and a very high rate of return
That sounds like it, yeah.
from an energy savings. So,
Thanks.
yeah, great effort by the waste treatment operations team to make that discovery and have a solution. And now you know too much.
Never do, never do.
It's all about the flea.
It's all about the,
Well, the minnow and the algae as
Yeah.
well.
yeah,
The
Well, we can't
flea
leave
was
them out.
having the hardest time reproducing.
It's not good.
Under economic vibrancy, we have your listed enhancement requests. Under responsive government, we have our three remaining items to focus on. And again, I could argue probably any of these three could be shifted over to existing services. Our first SCADA master plan was done in 2012, 2013. And since that time, there's been significant technology changes, which really is driving the need for the update of the master plan and transitioning this plan into program requests or program approach. And so this plan would ensure consistency, reliability, and security up to today's expectations. And so this is critical in meeting our regulatory requirements as well, and that covers the SCADA master plan request. The next one is the wastewater SCADA master plan. It encompasses that same area of needing to have the master plan. It's been 6-7 years since then. Thank you. I keep forgetting to do that. And so these are just part of doing business in public works with both the water and wastewater. Okay, the automated meter reading infrastructure was really started with the census agreement that you have all been part of those discussions. And testing the meters and making sure that they're working, the newer ones, and the system that we have. This will ensure continuous monitoring of 12,000 meters, and it starts to help improve the response to potential issues by identifying them, and we anticipate, is it a 5-year conversion?
That's approximately
10. So we will continue to replace with the new meters as we replace, and new construction uses the new meters as well. So this system is needed to continue to address the growth and the planned meter replacements. Oops. Did I skip one? No. Infrastructure abandonment. Our water supply and our area of drilling, which I think probably you've all heard of as well, as that's a piece of legislation we tried to encourage. We got rulemaking instead, and we've been able to impact the integrity of our system by requiring closing down old wells, and that's what we're doing. We want to be consistent with the requirements that we impose on others. We have 2 wells to close, and that is the downtown water or Meridian dewatering well, and that was previously used by Parks. Is there? No, sorry. In our Story Park, and the second well is in Meridian Heights, as well as 3 PRVs, and that means a pressure reducing valve. So this is what that request is about, is to officially close those out, again, to protect our water sources. And there is nothing under arts, culture, and recreation.
What? Murals on basins or something?
Doesn't have any public works impact. And so now you hear public works presentation in layman's terms. It was so intimidating.
So any questions, council, on any of the items listed on our 5 focus areas for the city's strategic plan and the budget request? Again, we have the subject matter experts here for you. Any questions at this time for them? Again, if there's no questions now, please continue to reach out to the staff members. If you have a question after reading it or thinking about it, we'll definitely reply to all of you with the answers accordingly. With that, we'll go back to Jenny, and she'll review the total enterprise fund as proposed to you so far.
Okay, let's talk numbers. Enterprise fund. We're going to start off with enterprise fund's base budget revenue of $28,340,000, essentially last year's revenue. They have $0 in fund transfers, with a base budget expenditure of $20,190,000. That leaves enterprise fund with $8.1 million available for replacements. Enterprise fund for fiscal year 2020 has a replacement expenditure request of $2.4 million. We subtract that from our discretionary revenue, leaving a budget gap in a positive position of $5.6 million. Now we're going to add in the additional growth revenue of $16.1 million. They're going to utilize $0 in fund balance this year, with a budget request of $7.5 million, and it's broken out by existing services and enhancing services right there, leaving enterprise fund in a positive position of $14.2 million.
They'll spend it.
Not this year.
So I do want to note that the budget position of the positive is a good thing. It's something that we planned in our 10-year CFP. It's a method that we've been using for years, save before you spend. We do have a balanced 10-year CFP at this time for the enterprise fund. And these approaches take these dollars to use in later years. Just like this fiscal year, or last fiscal year, you saw that we went into the fund balance. Again, we will do that in the future as well. There's ebbs and flows of when we spend it and need it, but this is part of our financial mindset that let's save before we spend, and that's what this represents. In later years in the CFP, you'll see the money spent down. So I just want to clarify that. Yeah, the number looks high, but we'll be using it in the near future. I even think in the next few years, we'll be using it pretty quickly. But I just want to explain the 14 million.
Okay, so putting it all together, total city for fiscal year 2020. We have on the right-hand side, the total column. We're asking, or has a budget proposal of $92.4 million in total. That includes general fund, community development, and enterprise fund.
92 million is what we will report to the state and the citizens later on after we, or whatever value, 92-ish million after our July workshop when we balance the budget. But that's where you stand right now is $92.4 million total fiscal year budget for 2020. And with that, those are all the slides that we had prepared for you for the fiscal year 2020 budget. Any questions on anything that we've presented to you? Again, you have your staff members here. You have lots of details in your book. Like, any questions that we can answer right now?
Is that last slide of the, I didn't see it.
That's not,
Uses
is
that
that,
all the time. I was joking.
Sorry, I gave you a blank.
The last.
the last slide's always there.
Yeah.
You're
No,
talking
not
about
I
the-
just want the Homer picture.
Yeah, you talk about the summary page.
summary.
Yeah, summary.
It's not in there. You just have to add put the three bottom numbers together-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
I,
We just put it in it's those three summary sheets at the front of your book
Okay.
on one side.
yeah. I'm impressed.
You
What's
like
up?
the new format?
He's still,
I don't know.
he's still
No?
processing.
Tough. Because here's one of the initial reactions is, whether it's intentional or not, right, when it didn't really engage. I mean, it's great data, great information, but nothing, I don't know. I was saying I love the information and the presentation was great. I like to engage. That wasn't what I was referencing. I'm just impressed with the presentation. And you covered everything from IT to coffee, from Boise, Napa, Meridian, and training centers, and Compass, and everything. It was like budgetary judo.
What's your judo? I like that.
That's what it
Wow.
just seemed like to me.
What?
I moved my mic closer, sorry. Sorry.
Dean. Don't do that, Joe. For me, I really liked, and I don't know how it would work or be time efficient to do what I'm about to say in the old format, but I really liked all the commentary from you, and it really showed your understanding of everything that's in there, and then the reasoning behind each of it, getting down into the fleas, which is awesome. I just feel bad for all the directors that are, I mean, they already get like a big massive email from me at some point, not having had a presentation on or in a discussion with everybody on each enhancement that's in there. I just feel like that email might be like 3 or 4 times bigger for each thing, but we have time, so.
Good feedback. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and again, if you want to put your list together, we can, we'd like to get it out to all city council members, and the sooner the better, so that you all have a chance to process it.
I enjoyed this better personally. I like facts. In the past, it almost was like an annual review type presentation with a lot of pomp and, like a lot of.
We have a lot to celebrate.
I got that, but that shouldn't be done during a budget. And it should be done at another time. And so I really like, budget, there's numbers, let's talk numbers. And I really like this format more than the last one. But this is number 2. I don't have a ton of comparison. So I
50-50.
Yeah. And so comparing the two, but, presentation, I prefer this one better. So good job. It was well done, and Mary did a great job, and Jenny and Todd, always do great jobs. Genesis?
I prefer this format. It went a little fast. I would like the summary, the whole total city summary sheet also. I think that'd be helpful. What I liked about this format was just being focused on the numbers and being able to really pay attention to the numbers instead of going off onto some story and then going back to numbers. For me, this was a lot easier to stay really focused on just the numbers. And I love having the review, the department annual reports, but we get that from every department.
Right.
Right.
The strategic plan focus areas
Yeah.
is that's really well done. To keep us centered on that and how each enhancement tries to fit one of those. And if it doesn't, you probably weeded it out or had it adjusted or corrected or removed. So that's a great focus.
Well, and I would say that is kind of a result of the priority-based budgeting and all the efforts led by Brad to help each of the departments understand what all they do and where the resources all are more dedicated to. So even as each of the departments made these various requests, they then had a better relation to the focus areas and where they really fit within that. So I think kudos to finance, bringing us all through that exercise, and that's what the priority-based budgeting direction is really helping us stay focused on where we're going and how we're getting there. Ms. Roberts, did you have a comment?
I'm probably at 50-50 right now. I do like the focus on the numbers. I think that having each department kind of report does bring out a little more engagement. But I think this was great as far as efficiency and focus on the numbers and definitely focusing on the strategic plan.
So.
But I'd like a little more engagement.
I guess it kind of sounds like we all feel a little bit the same way. I guess the only other way to do it would be to keep the format the same, except have each department director report their own numbers. Maybe. And you're getting that, but without the dog and pony show. And we're still focused on the numbers, but we get to hear from them. This is their budget, too.
Well, one of the more broad questions could be, a lot of the opener data talked about the growth, which we all know, and there's massive need to maintain levels of service, especially with our core public safety and the general fund, for example. To maintain levels of service, and the initial budget set up without utilizing some available revenues, the 3%. So to me, that implies that there was a decision, if there was any enhancement or funding requests that were made, that were not included, that the merit of those requests didn't warrant taking available revenue. And I don't know what wasn't included, perhaps, what enhancement or request was made but not funded, despite the fact that there is available revenue. Does that make sense? That's just kind of the concern, because always, for better or for worse, we've utilized this 3% or close to 3% because the demand has necessitated it.
Because we usually were presented unfunded requests.
And there's even unfunded requests, right? Which, and by all means, if we can do it like this, that's great. So long as we don't jeopardize our employees, any of our core services and levels of service, which I assume not. We didn't really get in the weeds on that. That's probably what you do on the back end. But it invites us to ask the question, we're saying we don't need an extra $1 million of available revenue, but we can still maintain all of our critical levels of service despite turning that away, which we haven't done since the recession. So it's just a kind of an observation that it sort of jumped out this year because we haven't done it in previous years.
I would like to note, the mayor did speak earlier in the presentation that the Benefits Committee will be looking at some possible considerations for enhanced benefits for the city employees, which would most likely utilize a portion of the 3%. So just because it hasn't been presented to you, mayor did plant the seed or give you a hint that before July, you may have a request that might utilize up to all 3%, hence why you have a 0% at this moment. So just because it's not in there now doesn't mean we're still churning some data, as the mayor mentioned. So you may have a request that requests for the use of up to 3% to meet those benefit needs that you're speaking of, so that we can still maintain a balanced budget as said.
And I don't raise the question to encourage to expend the funds just because. But I think the CFP in here, right, which you've utilized, which you've created, which is the best document in the world, incorporates the 0%, which is fantastic.
Yeah, the CFP as it stands right now, the general fund and enterprise fund are completely balanced for 10 years, based on the work that the mayor and all the directors have conducted. Again, there are some assumptions in there, obviously, for every year between now and 10, but right now it's completely balanced, utilizing a 0% at this fiscal 2020. Yes.
So, and it kind of ties into some of Ann's questions about, police 10, but if you need 16. And I understand the answers made sense from everybody that provided information on it, but it invites the question, I think a good question from council is, or we don't want to be short-sighted and do anything to jeopardize maintaining levels of service with some of those critical.
And as the legislative body, you have the right to ask us the questions, can we use 3% to hire more police officers, hire this? You do have that right to do so because you get to decide whether or not to take the 3%. The mayor made a comment, you could do a budget amendment as well to increase staffing levels for the police department next fiscal year if we find that we have the bandwidth to completely hire everybody and some.
Right.
So you have the tools in your toolbox to make either decision. Again, this is the guidance that we've currently provided you for the mayor's 2020 budget with some possible changes between now and July regarding benefits and so forth.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
what is it that benefit-wise it's being vetted for consideration later?
Sure.
We did have a consultant that did an evaluation among both locally and statewide, similarly sized communities and what they offer in a benefit package. And so it's a list of about 15 different items that some have costs, some a few don't. And so the conversation the compensation committee will be having is what makes sense to enhance What we do at this point, we're not even at the average point, and so we want to have the conversation to make sure that we have a competitive budget or benefit package that both attracts and retains our critical employees. So I can't give you a specific right now, but after that's vetted, you'll be able to see what those different areas were. We have put some cost estimates to it, so we know as we move those recommendations forward, what kind of cost impact they're going to have on the budget.
When do we anticipate learning about those?
Before the July, I would imagine before the July workshop. We need to vet them, so,
So do we.
yes.
Look forward to it.
Okay. Other questions? As you think of your questions, please send those to Jenny, and we will compile the list of questions and get those to our senior management team to fill in, and then we'll get them out to all the council.
We do have a few housekeeping items that we want to make sure we close with you. First one is, as I mentioned earlier, we have tomorrow slated as a budget workshop day number 2. Just want to make sure, I just want to verify with you if you do need another 4 hours with us tomorrow or not.
I was thinking 4.5.
4.5 you need tomorrow?
Well, Genesis and I won't be here.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Huh?
No. Maybe like have a ping pong tournament or something.
Your day's open.
What?
I don't think so.
So from,
It's in my calendar.
yeah.
I'm gonna unaccept that, I'm gonna unaccept that.
I don't think we, I don't.
I'm gonna assume we probably don't need another 4.5 or 4 hours tomorrow to discuss. If so, then we'll consider workshop number 2 tomorrow canceled. Perfect. Another housekeeping item, Jenny wants to go over questions that we've heard that we did not get back to. Just want to make sure we have the questions correct before we depart with you guys.
So I've notated a few outstanding items that we're going to report back to you. The first one was 3 years ago, the cup of coffee costs question. We will get back to you. And then also, there was a request for VRT to come back before the July workshop to provide an update to council. The other one was, I'm going to send out the citywide summation summary to everyone. So those are the 3 outstanding items that I gathered or notated from our discussions today. Is there anything that I missed?
So the growth slideshow?
Slideshow.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
slide deck.
we will present that to you, yes.
You say something about that summer list too? Did you say something? Just
Not at this time.
Okay.
All right. Mayor, we're done on our side.
Okay. Well, thank you, and if there's nothing further, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
so move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes. Holy cow.
2 hours.
Wow. Yeah, that was really quick.
I've heard,